It's been some 40 years since Sandy Duncan flew into our hearts on Broadway as the boy who never grows up.
For a while, in the early 1970s, Sandy Duncan was the most charming person on American television. She had a pixie haircut, a 1,000-watt smile, and an energy that seemed to bounce right off the screen. She sang, she danced, she did Disney movies and sitcoms and 100 bright, bubbly commercials. She was the all-American sweetheart, wholesome, sparkling, impossibly likable, the kind of performer who made you feel good just by showing up in your living room. If you grew up in that era, you knew her face, you knew that smile, and you probably also heard the strange little rumor that followed her for the rest of her life. The whisper that Sandy Duncan, that adorable twinkling girl next door, had a glass eye. It became one of the most famous urban legends in show business. There was a punk band that took its name from it. There was a cartoon on television that built entire jokes around it. For decades, if you mentioned Sandy Duncan, someone in the room would lean in and tell you with total confidence that one of her eyes wasn't real. They were wrong, but they were also circling something true. Because behind that relentless cheer, behind the dancing and the singing and the smile that never seemed to dim, Sandy Duncan was carrying a secret that was far more frightening and far more remarkable than any rumor. At the very peak of her fame, just as she was about to become a major star, something went wrong inside her head. And what she chose to do next, what she survived, and then quietly hid behind that bright, bouncing persona, is one of the bravest stories Hollywood never bothered to tell. This is the truth about Sandy Duncan's eye, and it is so much more than a punchline. To understand what she lost, you first have to understand how hard she worked to get it. Sandy Duncan was born on February 20th, 1946, in a small town in Texas. Her father ran a gas station. It was an ordinary, modest, working-class childhood, except that this little girl had something burning in her that her hometown couldn't contain. She performed in her first dance recital at 5 years old, and by the time she was 12, she was already a working performer, earning $150 a week in a local production of The King and I. Think about that. A 12-year-old in 1950s, Texas, already on a stage, already a professional. For Sandy, performing was never a hobby. It was the whole point. So in 1965, like so many dreamers before her, she packed up and moved to New York City to try to make it on Broadway. And she did not overnight, but through sheer stubborn talent. She earned raves in a revival of The King and I, the very show that had given her a start. She won awards. She lit up the stage in musicals like Canterbury Tales and The Boyfriend, picking up Tony nominations, and a growing reputation as one of the most delightful young performers in the American theater. Broadway adored her, and soon Hollywood came calling. She made movies for Disney. She filmed a string of television commercials so charming that they made her a familiar face in millions of homes. And then came the big one, the role that was supposed to make her a true star. In 1971, Sandy Duncan landed the lead in her own television sitcom, a sweet comedy called Funny Face, playing an aspiring teacher and part-time actress. The show was a hit. The ratings were strong. She earned an Emmy nomination for it. Everything she had worked for since she was a little girl in Texas was finally gloriously coming true. She was on the very edge of the kind of fame most performers only dream about. But here is what almost no one watching knew. Behind the scenes, while she was filming that hit show, Sandy Duncan was working herself into the ground, and her body was beginning to send out a terrible warning that she could not yet understand. It started with headaches, severe ones. Sandy was pushing herself harder than any human body should be pushed. By her own account, she was working until 3 in the morning, getting only 3 hours of sleep a night, and her weight had dropped to just 86 pounds. She was exhausted, frightened, and unwell in a way she couldn't name. The panic and anxiety that took hold of her, she later said, were unbelievable. In her darkest moments, she even began to imagine that she was losing her mind, fantasizing that she had been locked away in an asylum. She wasn't losing her mind. There was something pressing on it. When doctors finally examined her, they found the cause of the headaches and the vision trouble. There was a tumor growing behind her left eye, wrapped against her optic nerve. It was benign, not cancer, but its location was terrifying. It was sitting in one of the most delicate places in the entire human body. And it had to come out. So at the height of her career with her hit show, suspended, and her future suddenly uncertain, Sandy Duncan was wheeled into an operating room at a Los Angeles hospital. What followed was a 10-hour surgery on her brain. Years later, she would describe it with the same disarming honesty she brought to everything. They sawed the top of her head off, she said. There were holes and scars all over. And then they stapled it back together. She would have to wear a wig for almost a year while she healed. The surgeons saved her life. They even managed to save the eye itself. But they couldn't save everything. To remove the tumor, they had to sever the optic nerve behind her left eye. And when Sandy Duncan woke up from that surgery, the truth was waiting for her. She was permanently, completely blind in one eye. Just like that, at the very moment she should have been celebrating the biggest break of her life, a young woman whose entire livelihood depended on dancing, on movement, on grace, on filling a stage, had lost half of her sight forever. She would never again have normal depth perception. She would have to learn to judge distance by memory and instinct, tracking the world around her almost like radar, guessing at where things were because she could no longer fully see them. For most performers, that would have been the end of the story. A tragic footnote, the promising career that almost was. Sandy Duncan was just getting started. The first thing she lost was the show. While she recovered from brain surgery, Funny Face could not continue, and the network shut it down. When it returned the next year in a new form, retitled around her, the magic had slipped away, and it was quietly canceled. The sitcom that was supposed to make her a superstar was gone. She had survived the surgery only to watch the thing she had worked her whole life for dissolve. And then she had to do something almost unimaginable. She had to go back to work half-blind in one of the most physically demanding professions on earth. Think about what that actually means. Singing and dancing on a live stage requires you to know exactly where your body is in space at every second, where the edge of the stage is, where the other dancers are, where the light is, where the floor drops away. Sandy Duncan now had to do all of it with no depth perception at all. She couldn't simply see those distances anymore. She had to memorize them. She had to feel them. She had to rebuild from scratch the instincts that every other performer took for granted. So she did. She poured herself back into the thing she loved most, musical theater, and she refused to let her blindness shrink her career by a single inch. She returned to variety shows, singing and dancing on television, as if nothing had happened. She earned an Emmy nomination for a powerful, serious role in the landmark miniseries Roots. And all the while, that strange rumor kept growing in the background, the one about the glass eye, because her injured eye still moved in time with her good one, and people simply could not believe she had kept her own. She let them wonder. She even learned to laugh about it. But make no mistake about what was really happening here. Every performance, every dance number, every bright and effortless-looking moment on stage was in truth an act of quiet, stubborn courage. The effortlessness was the illusion. The work underneath it was enormous, and the greatest proof of that courage was still to come in the role of a lifetime playing, of all things, a child who could fly. In 1979, Sandy Duncan stepped onto a Broadway stage in the title role of Peter Pan. Stop and picture what that performance required. Peter Pan does not just walk and sing. Peter Pan flies lifted on wires, soaring out over the audience, twisting and swooping through the air, high above a hard stage floor. It is one of the most spatially demanding roles in all of theater. It depends completely on a performer's sense of exactly where their body is in space, and Sandy Duncan did it soaring through the air, night after night, with vision in only one eye and no depth perception at all. She was magnificent. She earned a Tony nomination, and she cemented herself as one of the great stage performers of her generation. The little girl from Texas, who had nearly lost everything, had not just survived. She had flown. She kept right on working for decades. She took over a hit network sitcom in the late 1980s and introduced herself to a whole new generation. And through it all, she never let the loss of her eye become a tragedy or an excuse. Instead, she turned it into something useful. She volunteered her time for the blind. She was honored for the courage she showed in the face of her disability. And when people asked about that silly old glass eye rumor, she set the record straight with grace and good humor, explaining gently that no, the eye was her own. She just couldn't see out of it. That is the truth about Sandy Duncan's eye. Not a punchline, not a party trick. A young woman at the absolute peak of her dreams who had her skull opened, lost half her sight, lost the show that was meant to make her a star, and who answered all of it, not with bitterness, but by getting back up, learning to fly half blind, and giving audiences joy for the rest of her life. The smile that America loved was never hiding emptiness. It was hiding something much stronger. It was hiding a fighter. And that the courage behind the sparkle is the real Sandy Duncan. If this story stayed with you, there are more like it, waiting right here, the real lives hidden behind the faces that once filled America's living rooms. Subscribe, and we will keep telling the truths they never got the chance to tell.